So this is going to be another workflow walkthrough where we do kind of an over-the-shoulder series on actual workflows that existing clients are using AdvisorClaw for. So this is a more sophisticated RIA that is actually doing a lot of back testing. And so they wanted to move that onto the AdvisorClaw platform. So I'm just going to do a very quick overview of how they went through that. So first of all, we've talked about this before. The main agent you should kind of think of as the orchestration agent. Here, this is the first boot, so this is the first job. So firm info is blank in this case. That's by design. We had talked to the client about AlphaVantage API. It's free and has a lot of really good coverage. We allow you to insert that here at the bottom. And so there's just some research here for the client to refer to later. We also asked it to take a look at X. The client hadn't yet loaded their X API key. But the agent actually still came back, it acknowledged that, but then still came back with alternative data sources for what we'd asked it. X is really good. There's a lot of noise, but it's also really high signal for financial data. I only read X through an agentic lens these days. We've talked about this in other videos. The first thing we did was we also set up the daily digest run. And that's what ran here under the cron job. So again, this is a very useful way to start every day. But now let's get into the backtesting. So the first thing we did was we told this client, set up a dedicated agent for backtesting. And when you set this agent up, it also provisions a dedicated folder. So this is just good project management hygiene. And what we told this client is the same thing. We tell everybody, think about LLMs as really intelligent, really eager students that come straight out and they're totally green. Now, what we do at IDX is we put them through IDX quant business school university, and they come out, and that's where they're in AdvisorClaw. So they have specialized skills, they have specialized code available to them, they're calibrated to understand and think about markets a certain way, and then on top of that, as you use this, they start to learn about your business. But all of that to say, you still want to manage it, very much like you would manage, kind of a more junior employee that's really intelligent, and keep them focused on, kind of building out specifically. So we set up this agent, and the first thing I said is, and this is kind of good project management, is just tell it what you want to work on. So this agent is going to be dedicated to backtesting, and I said I'm going to paste a transcript of the client conversation that I had, so you can understand kind of the high-level parameters that were discussed, any concerns that the client has, objectives, etc. So I'm going to scroll through that really quickly, and it comes back and says, okay, here's a detailed summary of that backtest deliverables, and this is really good. This talks about kind of conceptually what the client wants. I said, okay, great. Please save this as a markdown file in the backtest folder. So it did that. A couple of things about the agent folders. As soon as they set up, they always come with a system folder. You don't even have to touch this. I don't touch this. But if you're so inclined, again, we want this to be a full open architecture environment. You can go in here and you can actually start tweaking what they call the identity files associated with the agent. As the agent went through this project, it created a lot of code. Again, this is one of the benefits of having this deployed on a dedicated virtual private server. This is your computer. So the agent has access to Python, it has access to all kinds of tools, and it can create custom code, it can create apps. We have other videos where clients have actually literally created web apps that they've then deployed, all coming from AdvisorClaw. And so we just walked through it. So the first thing, going back to kind of project management hygiene, is talk to the agent about what you want it to do, have it summarize it, have it save that, and then just always start with an MVP, especially when you're doing something like backtesting or an app. There's a tendency to just dump everything in here and try to have the agent one-shotted. That's bad design for any LLM, no matter how optimized ours is. So let's just start with the simplest framework, and especially when you're backtesting, that's just good quantitative management 101, right? You want to establish kind of the minimum viable product, the simple framework, and then test the marginal benefit of complexity on top of that. Again, I want to have it kind of formalize what this looks like. So you can see here, it's reasoning. By the way, when you set up an agent, and we've talked about this in the onboarding videos, but it's worth reiterating. All boxes come shipped with full capabilities on IDX models. So these are Chemi, DeepSeek, and GLM, which are extremely powerful. Anybody who's been following the space knows that these basic, without specialization, these rival frontier models with specialization, which we're shipping these specialized, they're as good or better than the frontier models, and they're literally 90% cheaper, which is why the usage is showing 0, the savings is showing 56 cents, because had we been using a frontier model, this analysis would have cost us half a buck, which isn't much, but believe me, this number, like on my box, this number's hitting $10,000 a month. And for most of our clients, this is well into the several $100s a month. So back to this, you can see the tools it's using. And again, because this is sitting on its own environment, It has access to a lot of tools, including, these are quant Python packages, we've been using for well over a decade at this point. So again, this is the benefit of having an agentic employee is you get, a very quick, very high IQ specialized employee, very quickly. So it's thinking through the MVP design. Again, you want it to elucidate what it's going to do. You want to brainstorm with it. Never try to have it one shot. It raised a concern about some ambiguity that the client had expressed. So I'm saying, let's skip that for now. Let's just build this into an MVP. We're going to be very simple. Let's go back to 2015. This is kind of our golden period for backtesting for a lot of different reasons, which I've addressed in other videos. I'll address later. But and here's what it's proposing. Very very straightforward. Super trend EMA ensemble backtest. It's defining the parameters. Here's the output deliverables. Here's where it's going to get the data. Here's how it's going to do that. It has some follow-up questions. I'm saying for risk off, just use cache for now. Let's also test each signal individually, as well as the simple ensemble, which is an and condition. When both of these are firing, it's risk on. When they're not, it's risk off. Use daily for now. We can deal with periodicity later. All these things we want to test. And so it's running. And I literally stepped away. I came back, maybe 10 minutes later. I said, "Are you done?" And he said, "Nope, I'm still building." So he's cranking. And there's times where, I'll have 7 of these going, for hours at a time sometimes. Generally, you don't want them to go that long. You want to kind of have check-ins and follow-ups. So you can see its process, you can see what it's doing, and here's the MVP backtest. So this is all done in a matter of minutes. So here's what it looks like. These are basically trend following. So not surprisingly, it kind of looks like we'd expect. But this result is first of all consistent with decades of academic literature, but also shows the utility of kind of trend following style strategies in which you're basically manufacturing a synthetic put option. If we look at the ensemble, for example, all right, the compounded average return is half, but the drawdown is 2. So on a CalMAR basis, it actually doesn't look that bad relative to buy and hold. Also, you're in the market only 55% of the time, and this is completely not optimized by design. This is an MVP. The broader point isn't the strategy here, and here's key observations. The broader point is how quickly the agent was able to do this work and establish a framework and a benchmark for which now we can add all kinds of complexity. And it's stored in this backtest folder. So again, you can have, I've got 30 different backtest folders, some of which going back 5 years at this point. We can go in the output and, let's look at the equity curve. Here's what it looks like. Let's look at the drawdowns, right? That really tells the story. All kinds of things. So this is, by the way, this is stuff that, even us is coming out of a front office quant hedge firm in which everybody was fluent in Python and we already have these scripts ready to go. I mean, this still would have taken us longer to get to this result. Because again, these LLMs are really, really good. Here's actually the daily digest from the cron job. Let's go back to the chat. So again, this is just meant to be a quick walkthrough, but this is, I think, one of the more kind of interesting use cases of a sophisticated client that came on, wanted to kind of move their backtesting process entirely on AdvisorClaw, which, we ourselves did. And it kind of demonstrates, the more powerful end of the spectrum in terms of use cases.